everybody, it's Erica Galinas with the Mike McCaddy team at Century 21 Affiliated, coming here this week with your Ask the Agent question. I just want to share something. It's not the most exciting part of a real estate transaction, but it actually might be one of the most important parts of the real estate transaction, and that is the title work. So it's not something that people talk about very often. A lot of times in conversation, or when I'm talking to a client, I'll say, blah, 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 and then, we'll look at the title work, and everyone kind of nods intelligently, and we just kind of go past it. I know that most people don't really know what title work is. Think maybe it's something complicated, because there's a lot of kind of like legalese and lingo and stuff like that in there. It's a boring read. But I wanted to go through the high points, because it literally is probably the most important part of your transaction. So, seller selling a home, buyer's buying a home, obviously. This buyer, part of the contract, makes the seller provide title work, and it's in the contract. It's more complex. The most accurate and up-to-date available Alta owner's title policy, and that's insurance is part of it. But with shorthand for it is just title work. What title work is for, from the buyer's perspective, is to make sure that the person who is selling you the house, the person who's going to sign the deed, is actually the owner of the house. It is also demonstrating to both the buyer and the seller that, except for mortgages or something that you know about, there is no other lien against the property that would need to be paid off. And the other thing is that it'll go through and tell you about any homeowners association. It'll tell you about easements, whether it's a town easement or utility easement, or if it's some kind of setup where you have a private driveway, is it on the neighbor's property, how those kinds of things are worked out. So any kind of deed restrictions or details will be on the title work as well. So those are the big three things: the liens, the ownership, and the easement. So ownership of the property is usually pretty straightforward. What the title company does as part of the title work is they go to the county office and they research all the deeds that have been filed with this property basically throughout its history. I mean, some properties are, 500 years old. They're not necessarily going back 500 years, but they go back to a point where the title is firm, it's solid. And they go through and make sure, okay, it was transferred from Joe Smith to Jane Smith, and then Jane Smith transferred it to Bill Jones, and then Bill Jones transferred it to Mike Wallace, and Mike Wallace is selling you the house so he can sign the deed. There's no issue with who owns it. Obviously, what you're trying to avoid is that Mike Wallace signs over this piece of property to you. Turns out the property is actually owned by Bill Jones. Now there's a big mess, and it can void the transaction, and it's going to be lawsuits. It's going to be a nightmare. So the title work goes through to find what we call that chain of title, to make sure that the person signing the deed is the person who can sell you the house. Occasionally, I've never had a case where it's just like some rando, deed didn't get recorded, and now it's a big deal. I've never had that. But what does happen sometimes is most often a divorce, sometime a probate estate where somebody's passed away. There is some question, what they call a cloud on the title to the property. So Bill and Mary were married, and they got divorced. So Bill was supposed to transfer the property into Mary's name, but for some reason, that transfer never took place. So now Mary's trying to sell the property. The title company's like, well, who's Bill? We need something there. Most of the time what happened is either a deed was prepared incorrectly, it was recorded incorrectly. Usually these are things that can be figured out pretty quickly. So that's probably the most important thing, is making sure that the person who's selling you the house can actually sell you the house. The second one, and this is a little bit more common but also as important as the first, is liens against the property. So what a lien is you have borrowed money from somebody and you gave them a lien on your house, meaning that in order to get their money back, they can pull it from the equity in your house. Okay, so if you own a $100,000 house and you have a $20,000 mortgage, when you sell it, you're only going to get $80,000 because you have to pay back that $20,000 mortgage. That mortgage is the lien against the property. So we do title work. Again, go to the county, what's been recorded, everything like that. Usually it's stuff that you know about. It's your mortgage. It's your second mortgage. Sometimes, like in a divorce situation, an ex-spouse can have a property interest in the equity in the house once the other spouse sells it, those kinds of things, stuff that you expect. Every once in a while, though, this pops up. Two things. One is that something was wrong with the mortgage that was recorded. God forbid, sometimes, I've heard of ones where they added an extra zero and instead of owing $100,000, you owe $1 million. Like, there's kind of weird things like that I've heard of. The other one that you see sometimes is you have a lien against you, either because there's a bill you didn't pay, they went to court and they got a judgment against you, and in the state of Indiana, they can attach that judgment to your house. So if you didn't pay a medical bill and they sue you, get the judgment, now you got to pay back that medical bill out of your house. The second one you see sometimes is called mechanics liens, where somebody comes to your house and they replace all your windows. For some reason you don't pay them, they have the right to file a mechanics lien against your house without having to go through a lawsuit or anything like that. So those are the two things that pop up. Again, most of the time it's just a mistake. I had a client one time, we were selling her house out in Valparaiso. I get the title work, I'm looking at the title work and says, subject to Wells Fargo Mortgage or whoever her mortgage company was, and then there was subject to this, I think it was a credit card lien of, I don't know, it's $8,000, something like that. So they had, she hadn't paid a bill, they'd sued her, gotten a judgment, put it against the house. She's going to have to pay this $8,000 from the equity in her house. So I call her, I'm like, hey, this popped up in the title work. Turns out it was something from like 20 years ago that she completely paid off. She still had the receipts and everything like that. The credit card company or the collection company had never removed the lien from the property. So again, most of these lien issues that you see on title work are just mistakes that can be taken care of between your agent, your record keeping, and the title company pretty quickly. So that's the second good thing, particularly for seller and buyer in this case, that those liens are recorded and paid off properly. So the third thing, and this is a little bit more, there's a little bit more detail to this because it covers a bunch of different things. Easements. So an easement on a property, so you own this square of property, okay? Your house is in the middle of it, and NIPSCO has lines in the alley kind of behind your house, kind of on the border, wherever the NIPSCO lines were from 100 years ago. So NIPSCO has an easement against your property to be able to access it to repair their power lines. Or you'll see sometimes, like I said, sometimes you'll have people who have a private driveway, particularly out here in the country, where, they have to drive through somebody else's property to get to their house. Totally legal. Everybody agrees, like it's no big deal, but you're going to see that on the title work. It'll say easement granted to Bill Jones for the west 50 feet of the southeast, blah, blah, blah. It'll tell you where it is in the square. So if it's your square, it'll be like, right there. His driveway just kind of goes into your property. The other thing it'll tell you, kind of part of that easement, that same idea, is whether or not there's a homeowners association. Now, you should know right off the bat, if the agent is doing their job and the seller knows what's going on, if there is a homeowners association. It is something that is covered in our standard purchase agreements in terms of timeline that they have to notify you of a homeowners association. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people don't know. Maybe there's one from 100 years ago that nobody ever pays attention to anymore. That's going to show on your title work. So, the first section, Schedule A, is where they have everybody's name and the legal description of the property, and then Schedule B goes through some different things. And then there's a part called exceptions. And those exceptions include things like homeowners association, not the full restrictions, just the existence of a homeowners association and any easements. So if you see title work and there is, it's all numbered, it's actually kind of easy to read, it's all numbered and stuff like that, it's pretty well organized. And you're like, easement to Town of Lowell, back 10 feet, you'll see building setback from Lake County, 10 feet from each property line. If you see something like that on your title work, you should probably call your agent immediately because they should have already called you to say, I just want to make sure there's an easement on this property. That's one of the purposes of title work. But if you see something like that on there, absolutely call your agent. If you can call the title company. Usually you want to talk to your agent, though, about it. Title companies can sometimes, they're busy and they don't always answer those kinds of questions. Usually the things on a title work, I've had a lot of transactions. Knock on wood, it's been very rare that I've had something really bad pop up. Like I said, there was that one lady who had the old collection lien from 20 years ago. There's one where we discovered a setback, building setback. So here's your property line. I do it this way. Here's your property line. You couldn't build within 5 feet of it. So there's a setback of 5 feet. Again, not big deal stuff, but stuff we weren't necessarily aware of until we saw that title work. So make sure when you get your title work, first of all, if you want to see it, have your agent send it to you because your agent should have it no matter what. Your agent should be reviewing it. Your agent should be telling you all about it. If for some reason you're getting close to closing and you haven't heard anything about title work, what that probably means is your agent has the title work and everything's fine. However, call your agent and make sure the agent has the title work and everything's fine. If for no other reason, then mistakes can be made. So, you have to have that to close. You want to have that to close, so make sure you follow up with your agents. One other note, agents are not lawyers, okay? So most of the agents I know are super experienced, have seen so many different things. They have access not just to other agents in their office with, different things that have happened, but every office has a managing broker who is, by the state appointed to kind of run the office and answer questions about that stuff. So most of the time, if you have some cloud on the title, your agent is going to be able to understand it and take care of it somehow. Like the lien thing, I just called the client, she got a copy of the check, sent it to the title company got the lien released, so it's pretty straightforward. If there is something on your title work that you don't understand, and you call your agent, and your agent cannot explain it to you, then you want to contact an attorney to make sure that it is something good. Because again, real estate agents are excellent. They've seen probably everything. Real estate agents are not lawyers. So you want to make sure that you are protected. Again, everybody makes mistakes. Something gets overlooked. Title work has the potential to become a headache. I don't want to freak you out, because 99 times out of 100, your title work is totally fine, or if there is an issue, it's something little that can be taken care of between you and your agent and the title company. But if there is something on there that you don't understand, you call your agent, you make sure that they explain it to you, that, either what it is okay for some reason, which sometimes things can look weird and turn out to be totally okay, that it's not okay, but it's no big deal, and the agent has called X, Y, and Z people to have it taken care of. Like I had one the other day that had a typo in the seller's name. No big deal. I just called the title company and they changed it. If your agent can't quite explain it to you, or if your agent says, I'm not sure, contact a lawyer. Or, at least talk to one. Maybe you have one in your family. Maybe you have a friend or something like that. Title work issues can become a big deal if they are not taken care of prior to closing. After closing. Prior to closing, no property's been transferred yet. In theory, people can back out because there's this big problem, and we can figure out a way, because this isn't going to work for me. Let's say you get the title work 3 days before closing, and it turns out there's some homeowners association, and you can't even park a truck in your driveway. Well, we'll deal with what was in the purchase agreement, the contract, but somebody screwed up. You need to make sure that that gets taken care of before you close. If it's after closing and these things aren't taken care of, it's a whole nother ballpark. You have to maybe undo a transaction. You're talking about lawsuits. You're talking about all kinds of trouble that, even if it's not particularly expensive or time-consuming, it's just really annoying because you have a cloud on your title. You bought the house in good faith. It was supposed to, the contract says it's going to be transferred, free of liens or any cloud on title. Turns out there's, a cloud on the title. Well, great, now I live here. What am I supposed to do? So if you see something in there, you don't understand what it is, your agent is unable to explain it to you and or advises you to call an attorney, call a lawyer. Just be like, hey, I got the title work. What does this mean? And they should be able to help you with that. Certainly if you need the name of a real estate attorney, let me know. I have a couple people that I've worked with in the area that are excellent and can always help you. So somewhat dull, super, super important part of the real estate transaction. So when you get your title work, I encourage you to at least look at it. Again, there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, I read all the title work for every transaction. Yes, it's my job, and it is the most dull paperwork in the world, but I got to do it, and I encourage you to do it as well because you just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, that there's no questions, and you, as the seller or as the buyer, are paying for the title work. At least you're part of it, so you absolutely have the right to ask questions about it. So, title work, boring, very, very important. I encourage you to read it. If you have any questions about title work, if you have any questions about, say, selling a house that you happen to own or buying a new home that you would like to purchase, absolutely give me a call or text me anytime, 219-765-2062. If it's easier, send me an email, hsbyerica, stands for Home Sales by Erica, @gmail.com. Send me a private message, leave something in the comments below. Whatever it is you need, I'm happy to help. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys soon.